would he actually throw an extra defensive back onto the field, knowing that?
Not a dime team right now.
Excuse me.
We're not a dime team right now.
Yeah, have they become a dime team? That's exactly the way I should ask the question. From 2 weeks ago when he said we're not a dime team, have they become a dime? Have they had the capability of becoming a dime team?
Well, they used dime on the biggest play of the game against Tampa Bay, which was that third down conversion to Antonio Brown. Didn't work.
The Mac and Mac guy, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, doing number 365 Sunday showdown between the Lions and Eagles. Are you even allowed to call a matchup between a 2-5 team and an 0-7 team a showdown? I guess so. I ain't gonna do anything.
Yeah, why not? It's a showdown.
And we thank Dave Burkett, who I had suggested to me as a guest. I had never had Dave on one of my shows before. Damn, he's good. You make a little notation. Very good. We got to have him on again if I need to get a Detroit Lions guy up here. He made a good point in that the Lions haven't scored 19 points since the first week of the season. Yes, they've hung in games. Yes, they haven't quit when they've fallen behind. They've played the entire 60 minutes hard, not well enough to get a win, but hard enough to get a win. I just looked at the latest line on the Eagles and the Lions. It opened with the Eagles as a 3.5-point favorite on the road. Not a great surprise here. In most outlets, it is still 3.5. In some, it has come down to 3. That is a key half point, if you ask me. And the over-under number opened at 49.5. It has come down to 48 across the board, except in a couple of spots, it's 47.5. Yeah, the more I think about it, even though I'm not happy with the Eagles' defense these days, and I did say earlier, I'm putting some faith in Jonathon Gannon at least tinkering with his defense. Not massive changes, but a little tinkering of his defense. And the Lions aren't a offensive juggernaut. Maybe the under is to play more so than the Eagles is to play this week. That this game right now has 20-17 written all over it.
Yeah, it does. You would think it would play into some of the struggles the Eagles are having. So Dave kind of leaned me more towards the Eagles by pointing that out. So the Lions are 28th in points per game. So down at the bottom of the league. 26th in third down offense, 25th in fourth down offense, 30th in red zone offense. So they're pretty consistently bad. The one outlier, they're middle of the pack in passing offense at 17. Probably, a check mark in Jared Goff's column because he can throw the football at least accurately if you give him a little bit of time. The problem is he's got nobody to throw it to. And the Eagles have been giving up 90% completion percentages, 80%, dink and dunking. So maybe it's, Hawkinson, it's Swift. They have to go about it. But there's nothing to hang your hat on with this Lions team. I mean, defensively, it's all they're 31st in fourth down defense. They're 32nd, dead last in red zone defense. 25th in total defense. There's nothing to hang your hat on with this team. It's tough. That's why they're 0-7, I guess.
Right. It's just the fact that they don't get beat by 4 touchdowns. You would think a team that's that bad.
Although maybe the special teams. Maybe Dave
Phipp's getting the job done. Well, last week they got 3 turnover possessions.
They have the best punter in football. Where do you see Jack Box? He's unbelievable. Which, but I mean, when your punter's your best player, that's not a good thing. And Aaron Cepas has been that way for the Eagles a couple times, at least for a couple of games.
Let me ask you a question about Jonathon Gannon's use of players coming up for this Sunday's game. I was surprised Dave Phipp Well, he was being honest with us, but he said he thought that DeAndre Swift was a good pass catcher coming out of the University of Georgia. We have our boy Rick Saratel on this past year before the draft. We started Bird 365 before the draft. I pay close attention to the draft and the way that the players are perceived before they're actually taken off the board on draft day. I remember there being questions about DeAndre Swift and his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. I thought he was easily the number one draftable back. He ended up, I think he was the second back taken, and I know he was taken in the second round. I thought he was better than that. But I knew the reason why he slipped was because he wasn't great catching the ball out of the backfield. Last year for the Lions, he had 46 catches. He's already got 42 this year. We're at game 7, and he's almost surpassed how many catches he had last year. So I stand by my assertion that he is much improved in that area of it. Now, maybe they do a lot more. Maybe that he's the number one option coming out of backfield more often. Stafford could sling a little bit, so they didn't ask him to do it. 42 might have been an acceptable number for him last year, but he is a much bigger part of the offense this season coming out of the backfield. Leads the team in receptions by a goodly amount, as a matter of fact. How does Jonathon Gannon go about defensing that? What would his base defense, the way he plays defense, if the number one possibility for you to get beat is swing passes out of the backfield to a particular back? How do you shut that down, Johnny Mac?
Well, I mean, that's part of the problem with the Eagles defense. And we've been talking about the linebackers a lot, and he's been rotating linebackers. Look, I always say linebackers, I wrote about this for Sports Illustrated. Linebacker in the NFL is not a rotational position. There are certain positions that are rotational. You try to find a 3-down linebacker, really 2. Occasionally you play dime, and you'll only have that one linebacker on the field, but you really want 2 guys to play the significant portion of the snaps. And Gannon's been using 5 really in different, and that tells you he doesn't have any confidence in any of them. So if you're looking for the pass coverage linebackers, and I use that term not facetiously, but the best of a bad lot is Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton. That's been sort of the way he's been going about it. It's TJ Edwards and Davion Taylor as the run stoppers. And again, I put all these in quotation. And Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton as the pass coverage linebackers, with Singleton, the one guy who kind of toggles, and he does some of both. And then Gerard Avery is like that fifth guy who comes in when they want to use a varied front, and they really have more of a 5-man front look. He's not even playing linebackers. So it's been a weird amalgamation. And the bottom line is he doesn't have guys. But if you're looking at the passing game, it's going to be Wilson and it's going to be Singleton. And, DeAndre Swift is probably pretty excited about that.
Would he actually throw an extra defensive back onto the field, knowing that
not a dime team right now?
Excuse me?
We're not a dime team right now.
Yeah, have they become a dime team? That's exactly the way I should ask the question. From 2 weeks ago when he said we're not a dime team, have they become a dime? Have they had the capability of becoming a dime team?
Well, they used dime on the biggest play of the game against Tampa Bay, which was that 3rd down conversion to Antonio Brown. Didn't work. More of a big nickel. If they go dime, it's big nickel, really, with a third safety. And it was Marcus Epps. Problem with that is Anthony Harris is still injured. Didn't practice yesterday, so no idea if he's going to be ready for the game. And then if you start going deeper into it and say Kayvon Wallace is back, I don't. Would you rather have Kayvon Wallace on the field or Eric Wilson?
I'd rather
pick your poison. Pick your poison.
Fair enough. I'll answer your question. I'd rather see Kayvon Wallace, but if he's not ready to go, continue to be injured, I'd rather see Zach McPherson. Is he just completely buried that they have no confidence that they're willing to put him on the field during any defensive snaps?
Well, they haven't pretty much for the most part. He's a core special teamer at this stage. Now, it's tough to know because, corner's been one of the spots that they've been pretty good at. Darius is having a very good year. Steve Nelson's having a good year. As a second corner, Vontae Maddox is having a good year in the slot. So those guys never leave the field. So it's tough to figure out if they have no confidence in him or it's just that those guys are playing well and those guys are healthy and those guys aren't getting injured. It would be interesting to me. I don't hope injury, but if somebody got banged up for a series or two, I would like to see who they would put on the field. I assume it would be Zach McPherson, but remember they picked up a couple corners. Now, I wouldn't think Tay Gowan would be in the mix this early. They just acquired him. Mac McCain's been here for a while. It'd be interesting to me. Generally, he hasn't been active, though, so it's almost has to be Zach McPherson. And look, he was great early in training camp, and then when he started to play with the first and second team, it wasn't as great. He's a fourth-round corner. He's probably going to struggle if he's out there.
All right, you mentioned the fact that they could get some relief from the IR, and guys could be back this week and potentially play. Know that the flowering plant that is the Philadelphia Eagles grabbed more attention than
the roots are there, Jody. You can't see them, but the roots are taking hold.
The Roots are a group that opens up Jimmy Fallon's show every night, not the Philadelphia Eagles. But has there been a Tyreek Jackson making a play in practice sighting yet? Because Howie Roseman sure did talk him up a ton when he traded Zach Ertz, and we're expecting at some point the return of Tyree. Are we getting any closer?
You're going to see the return of Tyree. Yeah, we're getting closer. They started his window, so they have 21 days, and he's going to be activated. And we're already into week 2, so he's going to be activated this week or next week. And you're going to get to see. Look, all we get to see is individual work. So we don't get to see any plays made in practice. But he made a lot of plays in practice and training camp. And that's the reason they're talking about him. You're going to get – he's one of the players in the second half of the season. I think they want to get a good long look at as a potential – that they haven't had really. Even if you think about Zach Ertz, as good as he was as a flex tight end, still has the record for catches. He wasn't that explosive down the field threat. And they think Tyreek Jackson has the athleticism to do that. They're very excited about the player. Now, I think people are skipping steps with Tyreek Jackson. He just started playing the position.
And I think when you say people, are you referring to the general manager of the team?
Yes. Well, not only him, but yes. The way he talked about him, it's like, and then you're putting more pressure on the kid as well because you're talking about him like he is Darren Waller, who we didn't get to see. And imagine if we got to see Darren Waller. You're completing 90% of your passes to Moreau, and Darren Waller's not even out there. But I think it's too much hype on the kid, and that's fine coming from outsiders, but insiders, I think it's a little bit strange.
Was a little surprising because we surely talked about him because you were impressed by him during camp, where you
can't help but not be impressed by the guy.
Right. You're given as much access as you are during camp. Once season starts, Yeah, come in for 10 minutes, watch a little individual workouts, get the hell out. We got to put our game plan in place. But in preseason, you got a chance to see plenty, and you got a chance to see enough of the young man to say, hey, keep an eye on this guy, Jody. He's going to make the team. He's got a chance to be a player. That was a while ago, but you were well within your right. Now that it has been under wraps for Howie Roseman to speak with him in such glowing terms, yeah, it's going to ratchet up the pressure on the player.
Hey, real quick, because I forgot to mention also when we were talking about Zach McPherson, he popped up on the injury report yesterday and didn't practice with a hamstring. So that complicates matters as well.
And oh, by the way, you mentioned Zach Ertz, not a downfield big play guy.
No, he wasn't.
Until he got to the Arizona Cardinals, and then he catches 45-yard touchdown passes. He had how many years here in Philadelphia couldn't get one over 35? So maybe it wasn't Zach. Maybe it was the Eagle offense that just didn't allow for him to make big plays like he did for Arizona this week. John, again, you guys have limited access, but I'm just asking to give me a vibe. Another day is clicked off the calendar. We're that much closer to the trade deadline, which comes up Tuesday after the game against the Lions. But you got a full 48 hours after the game to potentially do something. We all know the Eagles aren't adding. This isn't going to be a beat the Lions, hey, we're back in this kind of thing. If anything, they'll probably sell off and move a player for a draft capital somewhere thereabouts. We've been kicking around here for a couple of weeks as to what the Eagles could do, what the Eagles, in our opinion, should do. Anybody feeling the pressure in that locker room about the potential trade deadline?
You mean player-wise about
Yes.
being moved? I think there's certain guys that would like to be moved. Fletcher. I think there are certain guys who could be moved. Steve Nelson, especially if you lose a game in Detroit. But as far as pressure, I mean, Andre Dillard is, a potential to go, as we've talked about. If Derek Barnett's getting a third round pick, he's going. So there's the average. The obvious names, not average, the obvious names, I'm sure their agents have, given them a earful and said, that's a possibility. But I mean, it is the NFL, I always say. The Eagles are not trading 4 players. I just named 4 players. They're not trading 4 players at the deadline. It doesn't work like that. Fletcher's not getting traded because of his contract. Derek Barnett's probably not getting traded for the same reason. So, you're down to, how desperate are some of these contenders to have a corner? If they're really, really desperate, they might overpay for a Steve Nelson. How desperate are these teams for a left tackle? If they're really, really desperate, they might overpay for Andre Dillard. And that's how if someone goes, it'll be, if the Eagles can leverage it. And Howie's really good at that. And you can criticize Howie for a lot of things, personnel evaluation being number one, which is very important. But what you can't criticize him for, he leverages trades well, very well.
Agree on all fronts there. And Steven Nelson could have played a little bit better against the Bucs, because when I think about a team that is all in for the Super Bowl and has issues at the cornerback position, the first team that comes to mind is Tampa. Shoot, even their new guys go down. They get Richard Sherman off the scrap heap. He plays a little bit. Oh, now he's on injured reserve too. So yeah, I could see Tampa having interest in a cornerback, except that they just saw Steven Nelson, and he's had a nice year. He's been a nice addition for the Eagles. He didn't play that well against Tampa, which is going to make them a little gun shy about picking him up. But I hope that Howie can move at least one or more 2 guys. He waited on Zach Ertz and got a decent return for him. We're up against it now, so you're either going to do it, you're not going to do it. I don't think they're going to do it. You think we'll get something today? Think you'll be down there in Eagle Land and you'll get something will be pushed back? Delay, kind of like it was to get the Joe Flacco ducks in a row.
Well,
that'll be the first thing when you get that text. It says today's scheduled media.
You never
session
say never. I'll say this: you never say never with this team, and they might want to take the focus off the flower issue by creating another story. Don't think the Eagles are above that. By the way,
I wouldn't blame them if it happened to play that way. All right, one last thing. We're going to have our buddy Chris Franklin from NJ.com join us coming up less than 10 minutes from now. A lot of people are now expanding the conversation about the quarterback position with the Philadelphia Eagles. Joe Flacco no longer here. He was the number 2. Gardner Minshew, number 3, not activated. You guys hardly ever see him because individual workouts. Oh, he's not getting reps. That's going to be the starting quarterback, Jalen Hurts. Now that he's number 2, he comes more into the conversation. You don't think the Eagles have wavered on their commitment to Jalen Hurts as long as he's here, as long as we're not talking about the last couple of games of the season? You don't think that if Jalen Hurts goes out and stinks it up worse this week than maybe he has in some of the previous weeks, that we're actually having a conversation about?
yeah. I've already said except we're seeing Gardner Minshew at some point. We're seeing
but
Gardner.
let me define, and I know it's basically impossible, and I'm asking you to speculate a little bit. What is at some point?
Well, I think if they lose to Detroit, it starts right there.
Really? You think you think there's a possibility Gardner Minshew is the Eagles starting quarterback?
There's a possibility. I think it starts to enter into that category of okay, and I think part of it is, and I said, I wrote about this as well. I said Joe Flacco was more than the backup quarterback to the Eagles. He was also the buffer between. No one was going to call for Joe Flacco because of who Joe Flacco was. He's 36 years old. He's far closer to the finish line than the starting gun of his career. Obviously, no future in Joe Flacco. He was just a good backup quarterback that nobody noticed, nobody was going to call for, and as I said, was a buffer between Gardner Minshew, who's 25 years old and has started whatever it is, 20, 21 games, whatever it was, in Jacksonville, had some success statistically, and arguably can do more things as far as running a Nick Sirianni Indianapolis type offense that can bring in more things to it. And at some point, Nick Sirianni is going to want to say, I can do some more things. I can put more parts of this offense in if I got a quarterback who can handle it. So if it keeps going in a negative direction, the buffer is gone. So, we think about it this way, Jody. We talked about this a lot in the offseason when we talked about more league-wide stuff. And we talked about all these coaches, Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco and Matt Nagy in Chicago. And they're, no, we want to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. We want to go with Andy Dalton. I had to think about who they had in Chicago. And they drafted a quarterback at the top of the draft. There's such pressure when things are going poorly to get those guys on the field. And then all of a sudden, all right, we got to go with Fields. All right, we're going to, Lance is getting closer and closer, especially when you perform poorly. Now, it's not the same. Obviously, Gardner Minshew doesn't have that kind of cachet, but he's got more cachet than the starter. And when you keep losing, and you lose to an 0-7 team, and there's an alternative, who's the most popular guy in any NFL city when you're losing?
Backup
quarterback. And by the way, the personality on top of it, forget about it, man. Yeah, the Eagles started this.
That's kind of like Nick Sirianni. I don't really care about the personality.
Well, I don't care either, but it's part of it.
Small part. I'm picking the Eagles. I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'm going to make an official prediction here tomorrow that the Eagles are going to win the game. But part of me is hoping that Jalen Hurts throws 2 interceptions in his first 2 possessions and Gardner Minshew comes in. and he throws 2 interceptions in his first 2 possessions. And the Eagles just get stone cold crushed. So that on Monday, the pressure to trade for Tua Tagovailoa is ratcheted up so much.
You're going. All right. Yeah, I see where you're going.
So that Howie Roseman, if it just happens to come down that the Watson guy gets traded to Miami and Tua becomes available, that the Eagles say, now is the time to jump. Now is the time to get aggressive. Take Jonathon Gannon at his word. Take the challenge, Howie Roseman. Get up in somebody's face and make a trade and get Tua Tagovailoa.
It's way too early, but I'm going to throw out my early prediction of the Eagles 2022 quarterback, and it's one of 2 names: Kenny Pickett or Gardner Minshew.
Are you excited by either of those 2?
No, not at all.
Yeah, neither am I. So I'm holding out hope for. I'm much more excited about the possibility of Tua Tagovailoa than either of the 2 guys that you just mentioned. Good choice.
And where we differ though is you throw a third name, I wouldn't be excited by that either. So if you want to throw the third name in there, I wouldn't be excited by that either.
I'd be more excited by Matt Corral than either of the 2 that you mentioned, but I would take Tua Tagovailoa over all of them. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys. We got Chris Franklin from NJ.com joining us next. So please.